Okay, so this is The Scream of the Haunted Masks, Goosebumps Horrorland, Book 4, and now we're going into Enter Horrorland. So it's got a picture of the Horrorland ticket right here, same as all the other ones looked. The story so far. Ordinary kids are receiving mysterious invitations to Horrorland, a popular scream park filled with ghoulish rides and attractions. Each very special guest is promised a week of scary fun, but now the scares are becoming a little too scary. Two girls, Brittany Crosby and Molly Malloy, disappeared in the Black Lagoon water park, and Billy Deep was horrified when his sister Sheena suddenly became invisible. Then she went missing too. A park guide, a horror named Byron, warned the kids they were all in danger. He tried to help them, until two other horrors dragged him away. Why are the kids in danger? Where are the three missing girls? Maybe Byron knows the answers, if the kids can find him. When Carly, Beth, and Sabrina received invitations of their own, they had no idea they might be stepping into a real horror story. What's next? Turn the page to join Carly, Beth, and Sabrina in Horrorland. Chapter 1. Nothing can scare me, not after my horrifying battles with the haunted mask. So when the envelope addressed to Carly Beth Caldwell arrived in the mail from Horrorland Amusement Park, I wasn't afraid at all. I knew I would have a great time there, even though everyone says Horrorland is the scariest place on Earth. The invitation said I could bring a friend to the park for a week, absolutely free. So when summer arrived, I was ready to put the real scares behind me and enjoy some fun scares for a change. Our first day at the park, Sabrina and I took our seats in the very special guest section of the haunted theater. Creepy organ music played. Shadow ghosts slid across the purple curtain on stage. Evil laughter poured out of hidden speakers. This is totally awesome, Sabrina said. How did you ever get picked to come here for free? I shrugged. Beats me. No idea. A deep voice came over the speakers. Attention, everyone. Mondo the Magical is backstage casting a spell on himself. Unfortunately, he turned himself into a pigeon. The show will begin as soon as he turns himself back. Everyone laughed. I gazed around. The theater was about half full. Kids and families were still pouring in. The room was long and narrow with rows of ghost white seats. Photos of screaming faces lined the purple walls. Sabrina bumped me with her elbow. Look, those two boys are going to sit with us. I turned to the aisle and saw a horror. That's what they call the park guides here. He was dressed in green and purple, and he was showing two boys to the chairs next to us. Sabrina smoothed down her hair and adjusted her pale green t-shirt. They're kind of cute, she whispered. The boys dropped into their seats. They both had dark hair and dark eyes. Sabrina leaned forward to say hi, but they totally ignored us. They seemed to be stressed out about something. Billy, I saw them drag Byron into this theater, the taller one said. I'll bet they're holding him backstage. Billy's face was red. He kept glancing at the horror ushers in the aisle. Stay cool, Matt, he whispered. Just act as if we're here to see the show. Maybe when the lights go down, we can sneak out and search for Byron. I stared at them. What was their problem? But maybe we should search for Sheena, Brittany, and Molly first, the one named Billy said. Matt shook his head. Don't you get it? Byron said he would help us. He knows what's going on. We've got to rescue him from the horrors who dragged him away. Billy slammed his hand on the arm of the seat. Where is my sister? How can this be happening? Matt had something in his hand. I squinted to see it. It was a tiny piece of mirror. The two boys sat there, staring into it. Okay, I'm not a nosy person, but this is too much. What's up with you guys? I asked. What are you looking at? Their heads shot around. Oh, hi, Matt said. Didn't see you, Billy said. What's up? I asked again. You both look totally stressed. They glanced at each other. They were trying to decide whether to tell me or not. Well, we have a weird problem, Billy said, finally. My sister Sheena is missing, and two other girls we met. Sabrina's mouth dropped open. Missing? For real? Did you tell the park people about it? Billy rolled his eyes, like they want to be helpful. A horror named Byron wants to help us, Matt said, but some other horrors dragged him away. Matt saw me gazing at the mirror. He held it up to me. What do you see in there? I pulled the tiny piece of mirror closer. I see two girls on some kind of carnival ride, I said. Those are the two missing girls, Matt said, Brittany and Molly. I studied the girls in the mirror. What is it, some kind of optical illusion? No, it's real, Billy said. We have to find the carousel. Maybe my sister is there with them, but she may be a little hard to find. She's invisible. I glanced at Sabrina. She looked as confused as I did. Their story didn't make any sense at all. Missing girls inside a mirror? An invisible girl? They seemed too upset to be joking, but could it be true? Matt turned to me. He was very good looking. Billy was skinny, but Matt looked like he played sports. Are you special guests too? Did you get free invitations? He asked. Yes, I said. We had scary things happen to us before we got here, Matt said. Billy and his sister had to fight a bunch of zombie pirates, and I had some problems with this terrible stuff called monster blood. I pictured the haunted mask and my temples began to pound. We think they invited us to this park because of the scary things that happened to us this year, Billy said. Did something scary happen to you? Should I tell them? I don't even know them. I decided I'd better not. No way, I answered. Nothing scary ever happened to me. Sabrina poked me and started to say something, but I gave her a look that made her stay quiet. The theater lights faded. A bright yellow spotlight shone down on the curtain on stage. Music blared from the speakers. The show was starting. Matt climbed to his feet and crouched down. He tapped Billy's shoulder. Come on, they're not watching, he whispered. Let's go look for Byron. He glared at me. Wish us luck, he whispered. We'll need it. The two boys began creeping to the aisle. Chapter 2. Two horrors quickly moved to block the aisle. The boys had no choice. They sank back into their seats. They stared straight ahead at the stage. I could see they were really upset. Mondo the Magical strutted on stage. He was a chubby little man with a shiny bald head and big crooked nose. He wore a tight-fitting tuxedo with a big red bow tie. And had a long purple cape draped over his back. He took a deep bow. Everyone clapped. He held an egg in his hand, waved it around in a circle, and it disappeared. Then he pulled 2 eggs from his ear. He waved them around, and suddenly he held 4 eggs. He waved the 4 eggs, and they all disappeared. Sabrina leaned close to me. Pretty lame, she whispered. You'll like this one better, Mondo announced. Sabrina and I gasped. How did he hear that? Mondo's assistant was a young woman with long blonde hair and bright red lips. She wore a glittery costume of reds and yellows. She wheeled a steaming cauldron on stage. Mondo waved his hands over the cauldron. He formed one hand into a cup, and then he pulled a live rabbit out of his fist. Sabrina and I clapped. That was a pretty good trick. Billy and Matt stared straight ahead. I could tell they weren't thinking about the magic act. Here's a trick that only Mondo can do, Mondo announced. A trick no other magician has ever dreamed of. He lifted the bunny rabbit in the palm of one hand. Then he appeared to reach his other hand down the rabbit's mouth, and he pulled a hat out of the rabbit. I laughed hard. What a funny idea, pulling a hat out of a rabbit. Yes, that had to be the first. Mondo took another deep bow. When he stood up, his eyes bulged. He grabbed his throat and began to make loud choking sounds. Some kids gasped. The audience grew very silent. Mondo reached 2 fingers into his mouth and pulled out a ping-pong ball. He made more choking sounds. He pulled out another ping-pong ball, then another, and another. Pretty soon, a dozen ping-pong balls bounced across the stage, all pulled from Mondo's mouth. Mondo has a big mouth, he said. Anyone like to play tennis? He opened his mouth wide and pulled out a tennis ball. Sabrina poked me. He's pulling them from his sleeve, she whispered. Here's one you won't be able to figure out, Mondo boomed. Could he hear Sabrina's whisper? The assistant rolled a tall box on stage. It looked like a coffin standing on one end. Say goodbye to my assistant, Rhonda, Mondo said. She's going to disappear, forever. Mondo pulled open the lid. Then he banged the 4 sides of the box with his cane. Solid wood, he said. He pointed for his assistant to get into the box. Goodbye, Rhonda, he said. It's been great. Rhonda waved goodbye to the audience. Then she tossed back her long blonde hair and stepped into the box. Mondo blew her a kiss. Then he closed the lid. We'll never see Rhonda again, Mondo said. Who wants to be my new assistant? I need a new assistant every day. He pulled out a yellow blanket and wrapped it around the box. Everyone count with me, he said. He led the count. 1, 2, 3. He pulled the blanket off the box and tossed it away. Then he grabbed the handle and tugged the lid open. Empty, he cried. A big puff of black smoke. As the smoke cleared, Mondo let out a startled gasp. A dark-haired girl stood in the box. She wore a pale blue t-shirt and faded jeans. She kept blinking and shaking her head. She stepped out of the box. A hush fell over the theater, and then I saw Billy jump to his feet. "My sister," he gasped. "Sheena." Chapter 3. I don't understand, Mondo muttered. He wiped sweat off his bald head and gaped at the girl. Where? Was this part of the act? I didn't think so. He gazed out into the audience. He looked as if he suddenly remembered we were there. Thank you, he cried. Then he ran off the stage without taking a bow. All the theater doors swung open and everyone left. I watched Billy and Matt run onto the stage to greet Sheena. Billy actually hugged his sister. "You're back, I can see you," he said. I started to the exit. There were a million things I wanted to do in the park, but Sabrina pulled me to the stage. "We have to see what's up with these kids," she said. Sheena still looked a little unsteady and confused. Matt stood there staring at her as if she was a ghost or something, and Billy started tossing question after question at the poor girl. "Where were you? Do you know where you were? Did you see Brittany and Molly? Were they okay? Did you talk to them? How did you get back?" Sheena sat down on the edge of the stage. She kept twirling a strand of her dark hair between her fingers. "It's hard to remember everything," she said softly. "Well, try," Billy insisted. He and Matt dropped down beside her. Sabrina and I stayed near the first row of seats. "At first, everything was green," Sheena said, "like a thick green fog. Then I realized it was the monster blood, remember? I got vacuumed up with all that monster blood." I turned to Sabrina. "Monster blood?" I whispered. "What's going on here?" "I was covered in that sticky goo," Sheena continued. "I pulled it away from my eyes and I finally could see clearly." "Where were you?" Billy demanded. "In some other part of HorrorLand, I think," Sheena replied. "Some part we haven't seen." I looked all around. I didn't recognize anything. "What did you see?" Matt asked. "There was a strange carousel," Sheena said. "The carousel horses were on fire. They didn't burn, but they had flames shooting out of them." Billy turned to Matt, very excited. "The same carousel we saw in the mirror," he cried. "Sheena," Matt said, "did you see Brittany and Molly riding the burning carousel?" She nodded. "Yes, I saw them. I waved to them, and they waved back." "Did you talk to them?" Matt asked. Sheena shook her head. "I couldn't get close enough," she said. "I started running to them, but I couldn't get any closer. I ran and ran, but the carousel stayed just as far away from me. It was unreal, like being in a dream." "Then what happened?" Matt asked. "A door opened in front of me. It appeared out of nowhere," Sheena said. "I stepped through it, and here I was, back." I turned to Sabrina. "She has to be making this up," I whispered. "It's some kind of scary HorrorLand joke, right?" But the two boys weren't laughing. "We've got to search the park and find the carousel," Matt said. He pulled Sheena to her feet. "Come on, if we find Byron, he'll know where it is." "But where is Byron?" Sheena asked. "A few horrors dragged him away," Billy said. "We think they're hiding him somewhere in this theater." Matt pointed to a blue door on the rear wall. "That must lead backstage," he said. He started to jog toward the door. Then he stopped and turned to Sabrina and me. "Come with us, hurry," he called. I shook my head. These kids were creeping me out. I didn't want to join their game. I shivered as a brief image of the haunted mask flickered in my mind. "Sabrina and I just got here," I said. "I think we want to check out some rides instead." Sabrina frowned at me. "Carly Beth, what's your problem? These guys are totally cute," she whispered. "Didn't we have enough scares back home?" I whispered back. Matt stepped to the edge of the stage and gazed down at us. "You're special guests, right? Like us." "Right," Sabrina said. "Well, Byron warned us we're all in danger," Matt said. "That means you too." "Come on," Sabrina said. She dragged me on stage. We followed the others through the stage door. It led to a long, dark hall with cobwebs clinging to the walls. Our shoes echoed loudly on the concrete floor as we hurried down the hall. We came to the end and saw two rooms. One room had a gold star on the door, a dressing room. The other door had a sign that read, "Storage, keep out." "Hello? Anyone back here?" Sheena called. Silence. The dressing room was open. We peeked inside. No one there. Mondo's black top hat sat in the chair. Jars of makeup were lined in front of the mirror. His cane leaned against one wall. "Let's check out the storage room," Sheena said. She pulled open the door. A dim overhead light switched on, and we jammed ourselves inside. A fluttering sound made me jump. "Someone is here." Matt pointed to the wired cages under a small window. "Mondo's pigeons," he said. Other magic props were stuffed into a tall bookshelf that reached from the floor to the ceiling. Plastic eggs and rubber chickens and fake flowers and wooden bowling pins and white gloves and a deck of cards and a red and blue handkerchief. A skull grinned at us from the top shelf. Mondo's tuxedo jacket hung on a wooden coat rack. I could see a fake bouquet of flowers poking out of one sleeve. "Byron," Matt called, "are you here?" "We're wasting our time," Billy said. "Come on, let's go." We turned and started to the door. "Wait, stop," I cried. Something on the floor in front of the bookshelf caught my eye. I bent and picked it up. It was a brass name tag. I held it so everyone could see. The name engraved on the tag was Byron. Wonder if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Byron? Just gonna keep saying Byron. Chapter 4. Matt took the name tag from my hand and studied it. "Byron was here," he said. "Maybe he left it for us to find," Billy said. "He wants us to find him and rescue him." "But where do we go next?" Sheena asked. The pigeons fluttered in their cages. They started to warble and coo, like they were excited too. "Wait, there's something else," I said. I reached down to the bottom shelf where a folded sheet of paper stuck out. "Be careful," Sabrina said. "It looks very old." The paper was yellow and stained. It crinkled as I unfolded it. "It must be from an old park guide," I said. "Look." I held it up carefully. "I don't believe it," Matt cried. "Check it out." The page showed a drawing of a white carousel. Red and orange flames shot out of the carousel horses. "It's the same carousel," Sheena cried. "The one I saw Brittany and Molly riding." "But it looks really old," Billy said. I studied the drawing. "There's a sign next to the carousel," I said. "The page is torn, but I think I can read it." I read the sign to them. "Ride the wheel of fire. It's smoking hot." "I bet Byron left this for us too," Matt said. "He wants us to find this ride. He knows that Brittany and Molly are there." "It should be easy enough to find," Sabrina said. "Let's go. Those girls may be in real danger," Sheena said. She pushed past us and strode back into the hall. Matt took the old drawing from me. Then he and Billy followed Sheena. I had no choice. I followed them out of the haunted theater and into the bright sunlight. The park was crowded. We had to duck and dodge and push our way through Zombie Plaza. I bumped right into a purple-faced horror with a big metal box strapped to his chest. He staggered back as I bounced off him. Then he opened the box and pulled out something that looked like a hot dog. "Free monster dogs," he shouted. "Free monster dogs. Only $1. He squinted at me. He had one brown eye and one black eye. "Got $1, miss? I'll give you a free monster dog for $1." I stared at the lumpy brown meat inside the bun. "What's in a monster dog?" I asked. "If you're a dog lover, you don't want to know," he said. I think he was joking. I didn't want to find out. The others were far ahead of me. I saw Sabrina hurrying to keep up with Matt. I ducked past a booth with a sign that read "Nose Tattoos" across the front. A horror leaned on the counter, holding up a long tattoo needle. He had a blue spider tattoo spread over his nose. A smaller sign read, "Eyeballs pierced. Wet while you wait." That made me laugh. I knew it. Everything here was a big joke. Why was Sabrina forcing me to join these kids on their crazy mission? When I caught up to them, they were studying a big sign. I quickly saw that it was a park directory. "Over here," Matt said, pointing. "It lists all the HorrorLand rides." My eyes scanned the long list. Some of the rides caught my eye. The Doom Slide, the Bottomless Canoe Ride, the Free Fall Bungee Ride. Matt shook his head unhappily. "No Wheel of Fire," he muttered. "It has to be here," Sheena said. "I saw it." She started at the top of the list and began reading them out loud. "Maybe it's a new ride," Billy said. "They're always opening and closing attractions here. Maybe they closed this one a long time ago and just reopened it." "He's right," Sheena agreed. "Let's search the carnival area." She pointed. "I think it's that way, across from Goodbye Land." They started back through the crowd in Zombie Plaza. I pulled Sabrina aside. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I asked. "Well, yeah," Sabrina replied. "Carly Beth, what's your problem? How come you keep wanting to leave? And why did you lie to them? Why didn't you tell them you had a very scary experience too?" I shrugged. "I just don't trust them," I said. "You can't trust anyone at HorrorLand. Or anything. I didn't come here to solve a big mystery about missing girls. I came here to laugh and have fun, Sabrina, and to forget." Sabrina turned away. "Where are they?" "We're going to lose them in the crowd." I started to reply, but my breath caught in my throat. I shielded my eyes from the bright sunlight and stared at the shop across the plaza from us. The shop was called Make-A-Face, a mask store. I gazed into the window and saw a dozen green ugly masks hanging there, and in the middle of them, staring out at me alone, I saw the haunted mask. Ooh. Chapter 5. No, I cried out. I grabbed Sabrina's arm. She let out a squeal. I guess I grabbed her too hard. I loosened my grip on her arm. Sabrina, look, I choked out. She saw it too. Carly Beth, what's the big deal? She asked. She tugged me toward the little shop. I pulled back. I wanted to be finished with the haunted mask. How could it have followed me to HorrorLand? The bright sunlight nearly blinded me. I raised a hand to shield my eyes again. The shop window came into focus, and I saw that it wasn't the haunted mask, just another scary green mask with its mouth wide open in a silent scream. I thought, I started, but my mouth was suddenly too dry to talk. Sabrina rolled her eyes. I know what you thought, she said. You thought it was the haunted mask, but you've got to calm down, Carly Beth. The mask is buried deep outside the stable at Tumbledown Farms. I nodded. Yes, I know, but come on. I've just got to take a look inside. I've got to be sure. My chest felt all fluttery, but I forced myself to walk up to the shop. We stepped inside. It was a small shop. The walls and shelves were covered with ugly masks. A horror stepped out from behind the counter to greet us. She had long black hair tied behind her head in a ponytail and pale yellow eyes. The curled horns on top of her hair were tinted pink. Hi, girls, she said. Can I sell you a mask today? We're just looking, Sabrina said. The horror pulled a hairy wolf mask off the wall and held it out. You might like this one, Carly Beth, she said. I gasped. You know my name? She nodded. You're a very special guest, right? Something about the way she said that gave me a chill. Try these on, the horror said. She handed masks to Sabrina and me. They just came in. Kind of funny, don't you think? Know what they are? Vampire mice. See the fangs? I didn't really want to put the mask on, but the horror was watching us so intently. I tugged it down over my head. Yuck. It felt warm inside, like human skin, and the mouse fur on the outside felt totally real. My heart started to pound. I pulled it off quickly and handed it back to the shopkeeper. Then I helped Sabrina remove hers. Cool mask, Sabrina said. She rubbed her hand over a mask that looked like a crying baby. This totally feels like baby skin, Sabrina said. How do you make them so real? The horror smiled. That's a big secret. All of the ugly masks on the wall were starting to freak me out. Sabrina, I think we should go, I said. I started to turn away, then stopped. Something in the back room caught my eye. Yes, go check out the back room, the horror said. Lots more interesting masks back there. Sabrina and I stepped into the tiny room. The wall was covered with masks. They weren't monster masks or animal faces. They all looked like kids. How creepy is this? Sabrina murmured. I didn't answer. I was staring at two masks near the top. My hands gripped the counter. My chest felt fluttery again. Sabrina, up there, I whispered. She saw the masks I was staring at. The two girls, I murmured. Yeah, I said. Those masks look just like Brittany and Molly, the two missing girls we saw at that little piece of mirror. But that's impossible, Sabrina said. Sabrina and I stood there, pressing close together, gazing up at the masks of the two girls. And as we stared, the girls' lips quivered. The lips on the masks moved up and down. And they both formed the silent words, You're next, you're next. Chapter 6. I couldn't help it. I let out a scream. What's wrong? The shopkeeper appeared behind us. I pointed to the two masks. Their lips, I said. They moved. The masks talked. The horror shook her head. It only looks that way, she said. See? The window is open. The wind from the window makes the lips bob up and down. My mind whirled. I knew she was wrong. The masks were talking to us, warning us. The masks appeared to stare down at us. Now their mouths hung open in ugly scowls. Those masks looked just like two girls we saw, Sabrina said. That's funny, the horror said. Two girls came in here earlier this week. They said the masks looked like them, but I didn't really think so. Want to try them on? I shuddered. No thanks, I stammered. I grabbed Sabrina. Let's go. We rushed past the horror, through the front room of the store, and out to the street. Come back soon, Carly Beth and Sabrina, the horror shouted. Again, I felt a chill. How did she know our names? Sabrina and I jogged across the plaza. I had to get away from that mask store. We hurried past several shops. We stopped in front of a big poster. It showed kids on a beach, sinking deep into the sand. They were screaming and laughing. At the bottom it read, Quicksand Beach, drop in any time. We have to find those kids, Sabrina said. We have to tell them what the mask said. We have to warn them. I gazed around the plaza. Groups of kids and families were rushing in all directions. They all seemed to be having fun. I sighed. Sabrina, maybe we should just find my parents and go home. I said, maybe. I stopped when I heard voices, coming from the other side of the big poster. I poked my head around. Two horrors leaned against the other side. They were both licking large black ice cream cones. Black ice cream? One of them was huge, tall, and bulging with muscles. He wore a red bandana on his head, tucked around his horns. His friend was skinny and had purple freckles all over his green face. Our surprise guests are in for a lot of heavy-duty surprises, aren't they, Marcus? The bigger one said. I ducked my head back out of sight. Was he talking about us? Sabrina started to say something, but I shushed her by pressing my hand over her mouth. We both listened. Yeah, Bubba, the smaller one replied. They don't know how scary things can get. Things are going to get a lot scarier, Marcus, Bubba said. A lot scarier. 2 are already gone, Marcus said. We'll take care of the rest. We have no choice, do we? Sabrina and I froze. My heart pounded. I pressed my back against the poster. We didn't move until the 2 horrors walked away. They were talking about us, I stammered. Did you hear what they said? Sabrina swallowed. Every word. We do have to warn the other kids, I said. You were right, Sabrina. They have to know. Those 2 horrors want us all to disappear. Chapter 7. I started back toward the Stagger Inn. We thought maybe the kids had returned to the hotel. The frightening words of the 2 horrors kept repeating in my mind. 2 are already gone. We'll take care of the rest. Why did someone want to hurt us or make us disappear? What had they done to Brittany and Molly? Why were we invited here? I had so many questions. My head felt ready to explode. Carly Beth, I think we got turned around, Sabrina said. I think the hotel is back there, she pointed. I saw small yellow and brown cottages up ahead of us. To one side of them, a forest of tall trees. A sign on the wooden pole read, Welcome to Werewolf Village. A smaller sign read, Curb Your Wolf. I let out a cry. Sabrina, look. Is that Billy, Sheena, and Matt going into the village? We took off running. A narrow brick path led into the village. The cottage windows were all dark. The tall trees spread a thick shade over everything. I heard wolf howls up ahead. Sabrina and I stopped. No sign of the kids. Did I imagine them? The cottages ended at the forest. We entered the thick grove. Nothing moved. The trees stood perfectly still. We walked and walked in a total silence. Then suddenly, wolf howls rose up all around us, and 2 big white wolves stepped onto our path. Their mouths were open. Their tongues hung out over their jagged teeth. Oh no, I murmured. I took a step back. The wolves lowered their heads. They stared at us with cold gray eyes. Hoarse growls escaped their throats. I don't think they're friendly, I whispered. The wolves took a step closer, walking side by side. They didn't blink. They kept their cold stares on us as they advanced. They can't be real, Sabrina whispered, grabbing my hand. They wouldn't let real wolves walk around free, would they? I didn't answer. The wolves looked ready to pounce. I cried out when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I spun around to see a smiling horror. Don't worry, girls, she said. They don't bite till after dark. She made a shooing motion with one hand. The wolves turned and trotted into the woods. The horror trotted after them. Enjoy Wolfsbane Forest, she called. Wait, I shouted. How do we get out of here? I could hear her footsteps crackling on the blanket of leaves beneath the trees, but I didn't answer. Oh, but she didn't answer.